The massive silver spacecraft hung silently above Earth, its smooth surface gleaming in the sunlight. Inside the ship's bridge, Captain Wu Jae-sung adjusted his uniform and stared at the blue and green planet below. He had made hundreds of first-contact missions during his long career, but something felt different about this one. "Scanning protocols complete," announced his assistant, a slim alien with translucent skin and large reflective eyes. "Initial data streams are unusual." Jae-sung leaned forward. In all his years of diplomatic service with the Galactic Confederation, he had never heard an assistant sound uncertain. Their technology was supposed to provide perfect, clear information about any planet they approached. "Explain unusual," he commanded. The assistant's fingers danced across multiple holographic screens. Complex data patterns flickered and shifted, showing readings that made no sense. Vegetation readings suggested extreme biodiversity. Geological scans indicated a planet that should have been impossible to inhabit. Atmospheric compositions showed radical variations that would kill most known species. "The planet's surface contains multiple extreme environments," the assistant explained. "Freezing polar regions, scorching deserts, dense rainforests, volcanic zones. By all standard galactic protocols, this planet should be uninhabitable." Jae-sung's curiosity grew. Most planets they encountered were either perfectly stable or completely dead. This Earth seemed to break all the rules. "Life signs?" he asked. "Massive," the assistant responded. "But not just microbial. Complex. Varied. Millions of different species coexisting in what should be impossible conditions." The ship's communication systems suddenly crackled to life. A human voice came through, clear and surprisingly calm. "Unidentified spacecraft. This is Earth's Central Communication. We see you. Please state your intentions." Jae-sung was surprised. Most first contact scenarios involved weeks of careful approach and communication attempts. This planet seemed different. "This is Captain Wu Jae-sung of the Galactic Confederation," he responded, using the standard diplomatic greeting. "We come in peace and seek communication." There was a brief pause. Then the human voice returned. "Copy that, Confederation vessel. We're preparing a reception team. Please maintain your current orbital position." Dr. Kang Hai-rim, the ship's lead xenobiological researcher, entered the bridge. Her specialized scanners were working overtime, collecting data about the planet below. Her normally calm face showed signs of excitement and confusion. "Captain," she said, "the life form readings are extraordinary. I'm detecting complex communication patterns that don't match any known galactic species. Some of these signals suggest interactions between different species that should be impossible." Jae-sung nodded. Every moment made this mission more intriguing. Most first contact missions involved careful, slow approaches. Diplomatic teams would spend months studying a planet before making direct contact. But Earth felt different. It felt alive. The ship's external cameras began showing the planet's surface in more detail. Forests moved with life. Oceans teemed with complex ecosystems. Mountain ranges hosted incredible biodiversity. And everywhere, there were signs of a dominant species, humans, living in harmony with environments that should have killed them instantly. "Prepare the landing team," Jae-sung instructed. "But be ready for anything. This is not going to be a typical first contact mission." As the spacecraft began its careful descent through Earth's atmosphere, no one on board knew exactly what to expect. The Galactic Confederation had encountered thousands of planets, but Earth would prove to be unlike anything they had ever seen before. Little did they know, their entire understanding of life, intelligence, and survival was about to be completely transformed. The landing site was nothing like what the alien delegation expected. Instead of a sterile meeting ground or a carefully prepared diplomatic area, they found themselves in what appeared to be a wild, open landscape. Tall trees surrounded a clearing where several humans waited. But it wasn't the humans that first caught their attention. Standing next to the humans were creatures that would have triggered immediate defensive protocols on any other planet in the Galactic Confederation. Mark Rodriguez stepped forward, a large wolf-like creature walking calmly beside him. The animal was massive, easily twice the size of a human, with thick muscles and razor-sharp teeth that looked capable of tearing through solid metal. Yet it moved with a gentle grace, its movements synchronized perfectly with Mark's. Dr. Kang high-rim scanning equipment went crazy. The readings made no sense. The creature beside Mark should have been classified as an extreme predator, a being that would normally be considered too dangerous to exist near any civilized population. Instead, it looked comfortable, relaxed. "Welcome to Earth," Mark said, his voice calm. The wolf-like creature sat down beside him, its eyes scanning the alien visitors with what seemed like casual curiosity. Captain Wu Jae-sung struggled to maintain his diplomatic composure. Every instinct, every piece of training he had received over decades of space exploration, told him this scenario was impossible. Predators did not sit calmly beside humans. Creatures with such obvious hunting capabilities did not behave like companions. "I am Captain Wu Jae-sung," he responded, his translator converting his words into perfect English. "We are representatives of the Galactic Confederation." Mark smiled. "I'm Mark Rodriguez. This is Luma," he said, placing a hand on the wolf-like creature's head. The animal leaned into his touch, a gesture so familiar that it seemed more like a house pet than a potential killing machine. Dr. Kang Hai-Rim couldn't resist stepping forward. "May I scan your companion?" she asked, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her caution. Mark nodded. Luna remained perfectly still as the alien researcher's scanning device moved around her. The readings were beyond strange. The creature showed multiple genetic modifications, but not in the way the aliens expected. These weren't modifications for warfare or enhancement. They were modifications for communication, for understanding. More humans began to arrive at the landing site. Each was accompanied by a creature that would have been considered a nightmare on any other planet. A human with a scales-covered reptilian creature that looked like it could crush bones with a single bite. Another with a bear-like animal that seemed too large to move, yet walked with surprising grace. "You look confused," Mark said to Captain Jae-sung. "Most visitors are." The alien captain found his voice. "These creatures, they should be dangerous, uncontrollable." Mark laughed. It was a warm, genuine sound that made Luna's ears perk up. Dangerous? No. Powerful? Yes. But not dangerous. They're our friends, our partners. A new creature approached, something that looked like a cross between a massive cat and a prehistoric predator. Its movements were smooth, its eyes intelligent. It walked beside a small human woman who seemed completely at ease. Dr. Kang Hai-Rim's equipment continued to provide impossible readings. The neural connections between humans and these creatures were unlike anything in the known galaxy. It wasn't just communication. It was something deeper, something that challenged everything the Galactic Confederation understood about intelligence, survival, and companionship. "We have a lot to show you," Mark said, his hand still resting on Luna's head. The wolf-like creature looked up at him, and for a brief moment, Captain Jae-sung could have sworn the animal was smiling. The first contact mission had just become something entirely unexpected. This was no ordinary planetary discovery. This was something that would change everything they knew about life in the universe. And it was only the beginning. The research facility looked nothing like what the alien visitors expected. It wasn't a sterile, cold building with glass walls and strict security. Instead, it was an open complex that seemed to blend perfectly with the surrounding environment. Trees grew through sections of the building. Large open spaces connected different research areas, and everywhere, creatures moved alongside human researchers. Dr. Elena Park, the lead researcher, greeted the alien delegation with a calm smile. "Welcome to the Interspecies Adaptation Center," she said. "We're going to show you something unique about how humans interact with other species." Captain Wu Jae-sung and Dr. Kang Hai-Rim followed Elena, their scanning devices working overtime. The first area they entered was a massive indoor space that looked like a mix between a laboratory and a natural habitat. A group of researchers worked closely with what appeared to be genetically modified Komodo dragons. But these were not the aggressive reptiles from Earth's past. They moved with calculated intelligence, responding to hand signals from the humans with remarkable precision. "These are our radiation-resistant adaptation project," Elena explained. She whistled, and one of the large reptiles approached her. Instead of showing any sign of aggression, the creature sat down. Its eyes locked on Elena's face. "Impossible," Dr. Kang Hai-Rim muttered, her scanning equipment showing neural connections that defied all known scientific understanding. They moved to the next section. Here, massive polar bears worked alongside humans in what looked like a complex environmental research area. The bears weren't just present, they were active participants. One bear carefully manipulated scientific equipment, its movements guided by subtle hand signals from a human researcher. "We don't control them," Elena said, sensing the aliens' confusion. "We work with them. They're partners, not pets." The next area was even more surprising. A large pool contained what looked like deep-sea predators, creatures with massive teeth and bodies built for extreme underwater environments. But instead of being confined, they moved freely, interacting with human researchers who seemed to communicate with them through a complex system of gestures and sounds. Captain Jae-sung leaned close to Dr. Kang Hai-Rim. "Are you seeing this?" he whispered. "These aren't domesticated animals. They're collaborators." Elena stopped at a large observation window. On the other side, a creature that looked like a cross between a prehistoric mammal and a modern predator was solving complex problem-solving tests. It used tools, responded to verbal and nonverbal cues, and seemed to be actively engaging with the challenge. "This is Kai," Elena said. "He's part of our cognitive adaptation research. We're not just studying how creatures survive in extreme environments. We're learning how different species can communicate and work together." The alien delegation was silent. Everything they knew about interspecies interaction was being challenged. On most planets, different species avoided each other. Here, humans seemed to speak a universal language of cooperation. A sudden commotion caught their attention. In an open area, researchers were working with a creature that looked like it could have come from a high-radiation planet. It was massive, with skin that seemed to shimmer and change color. Multiple researchers worked around it, and the creature moved with careful, deliberate movements. "Our most challenging project," Elena said. "A creature from an environment that should be completely uninhabitable. We're learning its communication patterns, understanding its needs." Dr. Kang Hai-Rim's scanner suddenly beeped. The neural connection readings between the humans and these creatures were unlike anything in the known galaxy. It wasn't just communication. It was a deep, fundamental understanding that went beyond language. "How do you do this?" Captain Jae-sung asked, his diplomatic training momentarily forgotten in pure scientific wonder. Elena smiled. "We listen," she said simply. "We don't just see other species as things to be studied or controlled. We see them as partners, as beings with their own intelligence, their own way of understanding the world." The alien delegation exchanged looks. They had come to Earth expecting to find a primitive civilization. Instead, they had discovered something that would change everything they knew about intelligence, cooperation, and survival. And they had only just begun to understand. Dr. Kang Hai-Rim worked through the night. Her alien research equipment was spread across multiple tables, each screen filled with impossible data. She had seen many things in her years of scientific research, but nothing prepared her for human biology. The scanning results were breaking every known rule of interspecies communication. Humans didn't just communicate with other creatures. They changed themselves to communicate better. Her colleague, Dr. Mark Rodriguez, arrived early. He brought with him several data crystals and a cup of something called coffee. The drink itself was fascinating, a chemical stimulant that humans consumed regularly. "I want to show you something," Mark said. He connected a small device to the research equipment. Suddenly, the screens filled with complex neural mapping. But this was different from any neural map Dr. Kang had ever seen. The human brain showed incredible flexibility. "Watch this," Mark said. He brought in Luna, the wolf-like creature from their first meeting. As Luna entered the room, Mark's brain chemistry began to change. Not dramatically, not in a way that would be obvious to an untrained eye, but the neural connections shifted. Dr. Kang's equipment caught every microscopic change. The human's brain was producing specific chemicals. These chemicals didn't just signal communication. They created a bridge of understanding. Luna's brain showed similar changes. The two were literally adjusting their internal chemistry to understand each other better. "How is this possible?" Dr. Kang asked. Mark smiled. "Empathy," he said simply. "We don't just want to control other species. We want to understand them." The research continued. Dr. Kang discovered that humans could do this with multiple species. Their brains were like living, changing communication devices. Where other species saw barriers, humans saw opportunities for connection. They tested it with different creatures: a deep-sea predator, a radiation-resistant lizard, a massive bear-like creature. Each time, the result was the same. The human brain would subtly adjust. Chemical signals would change. A bridge of understanding would form. "Most species communicate through fixed signals," Mark explained. "Humans are different. We're always learning, always changing." Dr. Kang's research went deeper. She discovered that humans didn't just change their brain chemistry. They could read nonverbal signals from other species with incredible accuracy. A slight muscle movement, a tiny change in breathing. Humans picked up these signals automatically. More surprising was how the other species responded. They weren't just being controlled. They were participating. The deep-sea predator would adjust its own signals. The radiation lizard would show complex emotional responses. They were learning from humans, just as humans were learning from them. "It's not about domination," Mark said. "It's about mutual understanding." Dr. Kang's report would challenge everything the Galactic Confederation knew about intelligence. Humans weren't just another species. They were biological diplomats. Their ability to connect went beyond technology or language. Luna walked up to Dr. Kang. The wolf-like creature looked at her, not as a threat, but as a potential friend. Dr. Kang's scanning equipment showed something remarkable. Luna's brain was trying to understand her, just as she was trying to understand Luna. "This changes everything," Dr. Kang whispered. Mark nodded. "Welcome to how humans see the universe," he said. Outside the research center, the world continued. Humans worked alongside creatures that would have been considered monsters on any other planet. They solved problems together. They protected each other. They understood each other. A new kind of intelligence was being discovered, and it was just beginning. The Galactic Confederation's Central Council chamber was silent. Holographic displays showed Dr. Kang Hiram's research, and no one knew quite what to think. "This changes everything," spoke Counselor Vreen, his multiple eyes blinking in rapid sequence. The alien skin shifted colors, a sign of deep confusion and excitement. Captain Wu Jae-sung stood at the center of the chamber. Behind him, a series of images played, humans working with creatures that would have been considered kill-on-sight threats on any other planet. A human researcher healing a massive predator. Another teaching a radiation-resistant creature complex problem-solving skills. "Humans are not just another species," Jae-sung explained. "They are biological diplomats. They can communicate with creatures that other civilizations would immediately destroy." The council members whispered among themselves. Some looked afraid. Others looked excited. A few looked angry. Counselor Zara, representing the more militaristic factions, spoke first. "We could use this," she said. Her voice was cold. "Imagine creatures we considered uncontrollable now becoming our allies. Weapons that think. Defenders that understand." Dr. Kang stepped forward. "It's not about control," she said firmly. "It's about understanding. Humans don't see other species as tools. They see them as partners. The holographic displays changed. They showed scenes from Earth, a human medical team treating an injured deep-sea creature, researchers helping a massive predator recover from an environmental injury, scientists working to understand the communication patterns of creatures from the most hostile environments. "We've encountered thousands of planets," said the head counselor, "but we've never seen anything like this." The implications were massive. Entire planets that were previously considered uninhabitable could now be understood. Species that were thought to be pure killing machines could potentially become allies. The entire concept of interspecies interaction was about to change. But not everyone was happy. Some council members saw humans as a threat. If humans could communicate with any creature, what would stop them from turning those creatures against other civilizations? What if humans learned to understand and potentially control the most dangerous species in the galaxy? "We need to study this," Counselor Vreen said. "Not as a weapon, but as a potential solution to conflicts we've had for thousands of years." The debate continued. Some wanted to study human abilities. Others wanted to restrict them. A few wanted to learn from them. Dr. Kane's research showed something incredible. Humans didn't just communicate with other species. They helped them. They worked to understand their needs. They treated other creatures with a level of respect that went beyond simple scientific study. A new image appeared, a human researcher sitting next to a creature that looked like it came from a high-radiation planet. They weren't studying the creature. They were talking to it, helping it. "This is why humans are different," Captain Jae-sung said quietly. "They don't see barriers. They see opportunities." The council continued to debate, but something had changed. The universe had just discovered a new way of thinking about intelligence, a new way of understanding life itself. Humans were not just another species. They were something more. And the galaxy would never be the same. The testing facility looked quiet from the outside. But inside, something important was happening. Mark Rodriguez stood next to Dr. Kang Hai-rim. They watched as a group of alien scientists tried to understand how humans worked with dangerous creatures. The aliens looked confused, frustrated. They couldn't see what humans saw so easily. "Most species see barriers," Mark explained. "We see connections." A massive creature sat in the center of the room. It looked like something that should have been locked away. Scales covered its body. Its teeth were sharp enough to cut through metal. On any other planet, this creature would be considered a weapon. Here, it was a research partner. The alien scientists had brought their own scanning equipment. They watched the human researchers carefully. They wanted to understand the magic of human-creature communication. But there was no magic, just understanding. Dr. Elena Park entered the room. She walked directly to the scaled creature. Instead of fear, she showed respect. Her body language was calm. Her movements were slow and clear. The creature responded. It wasn't a trained response. It wasn't a controlled movement. The creature was communicating, listening, understanding. "Watch how we heal," Elena said to the alien researchers. She showed them something unexpected. Humans didn't just work with creatures. They helped them. They understood their pain. They worked to make their lives better. The scaled creature had an old injury, something from its past life, a wound that had never fully healed. The human researchers weren't just studying the injury. They were working to help the creature feel better. Mark brought out medical equipment, but it wasn't like alien medical technology. These tools were designed with care, with understanding. They thought about the creature's comfort. The alien researchers took notes. Their scanning equipment worked overtime. They couldn't understand how humans did this. "It's about respect," Mark said. "We don't see other species as things. We see them as partners." Dr. Kang watched carefully. Her own research was changing everything scientists knew about communication. Humans didn't just send signals. They listened. They understood. The scaled creature moved closer to Elena. It wasn't an attack. It was a gesture of trust, something that should have been impossible. More creatures entered the room. A bear-like animal, a creature that looked like it came from a deep-sea environment. Each moved with purpose. Each worked alongside human researchers. The alien scientists argued among themselves. Some wanted to study this as a weapon. Others wanted to understand it as a scientific breakthrough. A few wanted to learn from it. Humans are different, Dr. Kang explained. We don't see other species as threats. We see potential friends. Alina worked with the scaled creature. She cleaned its old wound. She used special healing tools that considered the creature's unique biology. She talked to it, not with words, but with movement, with respect. The creature relaxed. It trusted her. The alien researchers couldn't believe what they were seeing. Creatures that should have been monsters were working as partners, healing together, understanding each other. Mark looked at the alien scientists. This is how we see the universe, he said, not as something to control, but as something to understand. Outside the testing facility, the world continued. Humans worked with creatures from the most dangerous environments. They solved problems together. They protected each other. A new way of thinking was being born, a way that saw connections instead of barriers, a way that believed in understanding over control. And it was just the beginning. The Galactic Confederation had a final test. They wanted to prove or disprove the humans' unique ability to communicate with other species. This would not be an easy challenge. They'd brought in a creature from the most dangerous planet anyone had ever seen. This was a being from a world of pure radiation, a planet where nothing should survive, where life was impossible. The creature looked like a nightmare. Its body seemed to shift and change. Sometimes it looked solid. Sometimes it looked like living energy. Scanners couldn't even fully understand its biology. Most species would have destroyed it immediately. Mark Rodriguez and Dr. Alina Park stood together. They looked calm, almost too calm for the situation. "We're ready," Mark said simply. The creature was brought into a special research area. Heavy protective shields surrounded the room. Multiple alien scientists watched through thick protective glass. Their scanning equipment was set to maximum power. No one believed the humans could communicate with this creature. It was too different, too alien, too dangerous. Dr. Alina Park stepped forward. She wore a special protective suit, but her movements were slow and careful. She wasn't afraid. She was showing respect. The radiation creature began to move. Most species would have seen this as a threat. The way it moved was strange, unpredictable, dangerous. But Alina didn't see danger. She saw a living being that needed understanding. She started with simple movements. Her hands moved slowly. No sudden actions. No threatening gestures. Just calm, clear communication. The creature stopped moving. The alien scientists held their breath. Their equipment showed impossible readings. The creature wasn't attacking. It was listening. Mark brought special communication tools. These weren't like normal scientific equipment. They were designed to understand, to connect, to show respect. Alina began to work. She didn't try to control the creature. She tried to understand it. Her movements were careful. Her approach was gentle. Hours passed. The alien scientists watched in complete silence. The radiation creature began to change. Its movements became more controlled. It started to respond to Alina's gestures, not because it was being forced, but because it was understanding. Most species see monsters, Mark explained to the watching scientists. We see potential friends. The creature moved closer to Alina. This was not an attack. This was communication. Something that should have been impossible was happening right in front of their eyes. Dr. Kang's high-rim scanning equipment went crazy. The neural connections between Alina and the creature were unlike anything in the known galaxy. They were creating a language, a way of understanding that went beyond words. The radiation creature began to show complex behaviors. It solved simple problems. It responded to gentle guidance. It showed something that looked like curiosity. Impossible, One alien scientist whispered. But it was happening. Hours turned into days. The creature and Elena worked together. They weren't fighting. They weren't controlling each other. They were learning, understanding. The Galactic Confederation watched in shock. Humans had done something no other species could do. They had found a way to communicate with a creature from a world where life should not exist. Mark looked at the watching scientists. "This is how we see the universe," he said, "not as something to fear, but as something to understand." The radiation creature moved closer to Elena. It was no longer a threat. It was a partner, a friend. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Confederation's meeting hall was quiet. Something big had changed. Nobody spoke for a long time. Captain Wu Jae-sung stood at the center of the room. Behind him, massive screens showed the impossible thing that had just happened. Humans had done something no other species could do. They had connected with a creature from a world where life should not exist. Counselor Vreen was the first to speak. His skin changed colors, a sign of deep thinking among his species. "We were wrong," he said simply. The radiation creature that everyone thought was a monster was now sitting calmly in a research area. It worked with human researchers. It solved problems. It showed something that looked like curiosity, something that looked like friendship. Dr. Kang Hyrim presented her final report. Her research changed everything scientists thought they knew about communication, about life, about understanding. "Humans don't see barriers," she explained. "They see possibilities." The screen showed different moments. A human researcher healing a deep-sea creature, another working with a massive predator. The radiation creature solving complex problems alongside human scientists. Some council members looked scared. Others looked excited. A few looked confused. "This changes everything," said one of the senior counselors. "We thought humans were a young species, but they are something more." Mark Rodriguez stood at the edge of the meeting hall. He wasn't nervous. He was calm. He understood something the alien scientists were just beginning to learn. Communication wasn't about control. It was about respect, about understanding. The radiation creature had been considered the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Now it was working as a partner, solving problems, learning, growing. Dr. Elena Park entered the room. The radiation creature followed her, not because it was forced, but because it wanted to. "Most species see threats," Elena said. "We see friends waiting to be understood." The alien scientists had tried everything. They had used the most advanced scanning equipment, the most complex communication tools. Nothing worked like human approach. Humans didn't just send signals. They listened. They understood. They respected. The screens showed more images, creatures from the most dangerous environments working with humans, not as weapons, not as tools, but as partners. Counselor Zara, who had once wanted to use this as a weapon, now looked different. Her multiple eyes showed something new. Understanding. "We have been exploring the galaxy for thousands of years," she said, "but we never understood what real communication means." The radiation creature moved around the room. It wasn't a threat. It was curious. It was learning. It was showing something that looked like intelligence, something that looked like friendship. Mark looked at the alien scientists. "This is how we see the universe," he said, "not as something to control, but as something to understand." The Galactic Confederation had come to Earth expecting to find a primitive civilization. Instead, they had discovered something much more important. A new way of thinking. A way that saw connections instead of barriers. A way that believed in understanding over control. A way that saw every living thing as a potential friend. Outside the meeting hall, the world continued. Humans worked with creatures from the most dangerous environments. They solved problems together. They protected each other. Something big had changed, and it was just the beginning. 1 year after first contact, everything had changed. The research center looked different now. Creatures from 100 different worlds worked alongside humans, not as prisoners, not as experiments, but as partners. Mark Rodriguez and Dr. Kang Hai-Rim stood together, watching a group of alien scientists learn the human way of communication. Young researchers from different planets practiced gentle movements. They learned to listen, to understand, to respect. "We're not teaching them a skill," Mark said. "We're showing them a new way of seeing the universe." The radiation creature from the original challenge now worked as a primary researcher. It moved between different research stations, solving complex problems. Other species watched in wonder. Captain Wu Jae-sung had become a bridge between humans and the Galactic Confederation. He traveled between Earth and alien worlds, showing how humans approached communication. It wasn't about technology. It wasn't about power. It was about connection. Dr. Elena Park continued her work. She now trained researchers from multiple planets. Her lessons were simple but powerful. Respect every living thing. Listen more than you speak. See potential where others see barriers. The Galactic Confederation had changed. Where they once saw potential weapons, they now saw potential friends. Planets that were once considered too dangerous to approach were now being explored. Creatures once thought to be monsters were now research partners. A massive screen showed different research stations across the galaxy. Humans worked with creatures from impossible environments. A deep-sea predator solved mathematical problems. A radiation-based life form helped design new communication technologies. Creatures from volcanic worlds worked on environmental restoration projects. Humans didn't conquer the universe, one alien researcher said. They invited the universe to be their friend. The radiation creature moved closer to Mark. It was no longer seen as a threat. It was a respected colleague, a friend. Young alien researchers learned the human approach. They practiced gentle communication. They learned to see beyond simple signals. They learned to understand. Dr. Kane's research had become the foundation of a new scientific understanding. Communication wasn't about sending messages. It was about creating connections, about understanding. The research center was a mix of different species. Creatures that would have killed each other on any other planet now worked together, solved problems together, learned together. Mark looked at the young researchers. "The universe is big," he told them, "but understanding is bigger." Captain Jae-sung watched the scene. He remembered the first contact. How different everything had been. How afraid they had been. Now fear was replaced by curiosity, by understanding. Dr. Elena Park finished her training session. Creatures from different worlds looked at her with respect, not because she controlled them, but because she understood them. The radiation creature solved a complex problem. Other researchers cheered, not for the solution, but for the connection, for the understanding. "We are not alone," Mark said quietly. "We were never alone. We just needed to learn how to listen." Outside the research center, the world continued to change. Humans had shown the galaxy a new way of thinking, a way that saw every living thing as a potential friend, a way that believed in understanding over control. The universe was learning to communicate, and it was beautiful.